when the government of the United States is sending mass police to grab students off the streets and from their homes, holding federal dollars or threat of investigation as blackmail to force institutions into silence and routinely violating the Constitution, the laws passed by the United States in order to do what he wishes while using the Jewish people and others as a shield for its transgressions, we have crossed a dangerous threshold from which we cannot return unless we call it out for what it is, authoritarianism.
That's Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey among the dozens of Democrats in Congress demanding answers today about this alarming arrest of Rümeysa Öztürk, the 30-year-old Turkish student attending Tufts University in Massachusetts. Öztürk was snatched off the street by ICE agents on Tuesday, taken out of the state against court orders, then sent to an ICE processing center in Louisiana. Her lawyer says she was targeted due to her advocacy for Palestinians in Gaza. In their letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons, the lawmakers write this, quote, "The rationale for this arrest appears to be this student's expression of her political views. These are deeply troubling incidents. The administration should not summarily detain and deport legal residents of this country merely for expressing their political views. Absent compelling evidence justifying her detention and the revocation of her status, we call for Öztürk's release and the restoration of her visa." And just moments ago, as we were coming on air, a federal judge in Massachusetts has blocked the government from deporting Öztürk pending a ruling on her petition. Joining us now, one of the Democrats that signed the letter we just mentioned, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. Senator, thank you for being with us. Let's talk about that video that we all just watched, the tactics ICE agents use on Öztürk, and then for the next 24 hours, her location being unknown even to her own lawyers.
Well, Lisa, you're absolutely right. Look, this is a terrifying video. It was obviously terrifying for her, Ms. Öztürk. It's also terrifying for our country that you could have these agents, unidentified, swoop in, sweep her off the streets, and essentially disappear her to Louisiana, apparently against a court order, for exercising First Amendment rights. This should not be happening in America. This is the kind of secret police operation you would expect to see in authoritarian regimes.
Well, in addition to the fact that they weren't clear about where she was going, they have yet, they being DHS, to publicly specify the alleged activities that led to her arrest. And that is a pattern, Senator, that, as you know, is emerging. What does the lack of transparency on the part of DHS tell you about their intentions?
Well, it tells us that they have no legal basis that they want to at least present to the public, because everyone will see just how flimsy it is. Because what appears to be happening is they're snatching these individuals based on their exercise of free speech rights, right? Because of their pro-Palestinian advocacy. And in our country, you can exercise your right to controversial speech, and the government is not allowed to punish you for it. There's no crime alleged in any of these cases. It appears to be based simply on what these individuals said, and that is illegal because the First Amendment does protect individuals who are here residing in the United States.
Well, let's talk about that, because the New York Times note that some of the tactics that we are watching, they're not particularly new, but what is shifting are the targets: immigrants with valid visas and legal status. The fact that they are testing these theories, Senator, on folks who have one step down from American citizenship. They do have a series of legal protections in this country, and they are not being granted due process. What should that tell us about their intention of applying some of these same concepts, ideas to American citizens?
Right. As you often see in cases of authoritarian regimes, you know, they begin by focusing on the weakest links, people who they think have less rights and less protections, as a first step for coming for everybody else. And that's why it's so important that we take it seriously, not only to protect the rights of these individuals, but because this is a slippery slope. And I think the Trump administration clearly is testing the limits of their powers. I think they're very clearly overstepped their legal powers in these cases. I hope judges will rein them in because these are core issues. Now, they are trying to dig up McCarthy-era statutes in some cases and really stretch their meaning beyond any plausible application.
You know, it's interesting. I am looking as we came on air. We got this ruling that is going to pause her deportation. One, the fact that the case law they are referencing is now Mahmoud Khalil tells you just how quickly this is all happening. The fact that it is falling on these judges to be the ones to pump the brakes and actually maintain some semblance of justice in this country. What happens if in cases like this, as we've seen in the case of Venezuelan nationals who were deported to El Salvador, this administration chooses to defy court orders?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, when they go over that tripwire, it's going to be very important for two things to happen. One is judges need to exercise their power to sanction individuals who defy court orders. I know that judges don't want to take that step, but they really have to. And then it is going to be important for members of Congress on a bipartisan basis to stand up and protect the rule of law. Now, I have not seen Republicans doing that to date, right? A lot of them will quietly express concerns about what's happening, but they're still too afraid of a statement or tweet from Donald Trump or Elon Musk. And that is terrifying, because if they can't stand up or won't stand up to protect the law and the Constitution, we are in a very deep, deep hole. We're already there, but we are going to dig ourselves deeper if people don't stand up. It's why I've said today that we have to applaud and stand up for the law firms and the universities and colleges that are standing up to Trump's bullying. And we have to say that those that are caving in are making a huge mistake. It's a short road to tyranny when people start caving into Donald Trump's bullying, illegal bullying.
I think sometimes when you talk about the memos, you talk about going after law firms, which I fully agree is huge and critical, and is where we began this show. That can seem so amorphous, and I think part of what makes this story so powerful is that when you see video of government agents showing up on a street and whisking a single individual away and then not being transparent about why they did it, about where it is they are taking her to, there is just something much more immediate about the response. And I wonder, in light of the surfacing of this video, if you have Republican colleagues who have laid eyes on it, who also, I know that they don't want to go out and say this in public, but have expressed any reservation to you about the way in which this administration is acting with impunity?
So the short answer is some, privately. I think next week I'm going to directly approach some of my Republican Senate colleagues who have said that they are champions of the First Amendment to work together to make a public statement about this, and we'll see what happens, because you can't claim to be for the First Amendment and then run for cover as soon as it's violated by the Trump administration, which is exactly what's happening. So this is one of those moments, Alicia, and I do intend to test at least some of our Republican colleagues who say they're champions of the First Amendment and free speech.
All right, Senator Chris Van Hollen, next week we will be eyes on you to see how those conversations go. Thank you for taking the time. When we return.